And we're back. Let's talk about what we left off talking about first. So I said we want to make a little thing so that when we're in here, we have a point instead of a line. You know, right now our camera is what we're looking at, right? So we have our player is what's moving us left and right, and our camera is following our player. And when I look up and down, my camera is independent of my player. It looks up and down regardless of where my player is moving, right? So how do I make a dot that appears in the middle of my field of view? What do I do? Anyone have a solution for that? How about guys over there? Anybody? Yes? Okay, I like your thinking, but it's even easier than that. Let's do this. If we think about this directional line material, is this directional line material physics-based material or just regular material? Remember, this is the part of your game that you're going to think about, right? I can have things in my game that are visual, right? They're cinematic, all right? They're for cinematics only. And there's things in my game that I can use, right, for physics effects, right? That gives me the different effects in my game. What I'm looking for here is a cinematic effect, something that doesn't have any physical, like it doesn't do anything for us, right? And it always appears in my field of view. In my mind, that means it's always in my camera, right? So now what I'm doing is I'm pairing something not from my player, but my camera is going to be the parent of this object, right? That's the other way to do it. Okay? So wherever my camera looks, my object will follow. And it can be 50 feet out if I wanted to make it 50 feet out as I want. The challenge with this is, if it's 50 feet out, will I still see it, right? Will it go into another object? Like, you know, what if I have other objects in front of me? There's no overlay that kind of makes it so that it's, you know, it's right here. There's nothing like that, right? How do I do that? How do I create something that's in my field of view, that's in right at the camera, right? And my camera is the parent, and this other object is kind of, you know, right in my field of view. How do I do that? Yeah. Yes? I love your thinking. That's reticule in front of that. You could do that. And so that would be at, remember, it'd be at 0, 0, 0. If I put a transparent mesh, a transparent, you know, a texture in front of my camera, it'd be on a plane, right? So first of all, let's make a plane that's not so big. How big would it be if I was going to make it so that there would be, you know, something that I can see in front of my camera? Like maybe, I don't know, huh? Now let's make it like, I don't know, 5 feet away and make it a 1x1 plane, something like that. Let's see how big that is going to be in front of my camera, right? So we're going to do it in line here. I'm not even going to make it so it's crazy. Just to test it out. This is how I do when I test things out. Here's my camera. I added a position, and now I'll make a little reticule. So I'll do a variable declaration right here. I'll say var temp, right, is equal to a, now I'll say we need two things we need a geometry and a material. So var temp geometry, temp geom is going to be equal to a type of geometry. We'll make it a geometry, right? And that geometry is going to be equal to a new plane geometry, right? So plane geometry, there we are. And for plane geometry, we need width, height, and the number of segments. So I'll make it so that the width and the height is 1, right? There it is. And var temp material, so temp mat, is equal to a plane material, or we'll make it a Lambert material, right? So Lambert, so we can see it. And it'll be a new Lambert material, and we'll make it a color of, with a color of 0x, 0x FF00, yellow, right? So the other one, right? So there's our temp material, and then we'll say our temp object, whatever it is going to be of type, to be a plane, right? If I go, it could be a plane like that. It's going to be a mesh, right? There's our mesh, regular mesh that we're going to have, right? And it's going to be equal to a new mesh object, right? Because we have with a plane with a geometry of temp geom and temp mat. Okay. Now we want to add it to the camera, so I'll say camera, if that's possible. Dot add temp object. Right. That's what we're going to do, and then we're going to reposition the object. Let's say 5 away from the camera, right? 5 in the Z direction, right? So we'll say. This is the first thing I'd like to do, right? So camera, or sorry, temp obj dot position dot set, and it'll be 0 dot 0 dot, I don't know, -5, right? We'll format everything and save it and see what we got. So this is like a flat plane that's right there in our mesh, right? See? Now here's something, I'm seeing it black. How come? Well, light is wherever I move, this thing will move, right? Oh. So I could do that, but so notice how it's pretty big, but there is a plane. But if I go here, this is the problem that I have. Look, it goes inside the ground, right? That's not good. But anywhere I go, this thing is, and see how my line is spearing it, right? That's pretty cool. I can move anywhere I want. It's in the middle of my screen, right? That's where it's going to be. So the idea is good, right? The idea we have of making this plane here is good, right? But what I want to do is do what you're saying, which is add a texture, and the reticule will be a texture that we're going to add in the middle of our screen, right? So that's something we could do. We could also make it so that it's an overlay like up here, right? Like so outside in the HTML side. Caution, right? That can be very bad too. But we want to make it so we have some kind of reticule in the middle of our screen, and how do we do that, right? Now, if I move this yellow square, see the yellow square? Let's move it right in front of the camera, right? Just to give you an idea of what you're talking about, Josh. Right? So just support your, I'm supporting you here, right? All right, just to see how it works, right? So if I was to do what you're asking, so I'm gonna go back to code. Instead of -5, let's make it 0. And press save, and then see what I got. I don't see it. So it can't be 0, right? Because 0, remember, I looked right through it, just like it's, I can see it's, my camera and my object is touching, and I see right through it. So that's not it. Let's make it -0.1. Something, so it's not quite touching, right? So it's right in front of my camera, but it's not quite in front. So -0.1, -0.1. Okay. So something that's really close in. And remember, another thing we have to think about this. Why isn't it rendering? Okay, it's very interesting, right? Well, I'm gonna go into convulsions in a second. Hold on, right? Why? There's another thing I want to talk about. Yeah. Here's the reason why. Here's the reason why. Take a look at the camera. Look at what my near plane is 0.1, and my far plane is 100. Anything that's closer to me than the near plane is cold. I don't see it, right? So when I put my object at 0, and that's why I can't see my wall in front of me being inside my block, I'm calling anything that's closer than 0.1, right? And this thing would be closer than 0.1 because my block is right here, right? I'm not drawing it because it's too close, right? Same thing if I put it at 0.1, right? Now it's just at the edge of where I should start seeing it. I'm just starting to see it, right? So if I put it at 0.2, right, it's just far enough so that it's not on the edge. Right, let's try this out. Going with what you're saying. I like your thinking. This is the kind of stuff we have to talk about because someone's going to do a special effect at some point, and there's different ways of doing this kind of stuff. If you think about some stuff, being creative is what I mean. Okay, so here's my camera and my temporary object. Let's make it a -0.2. Let's see what that does. It's perfect. Why is it perfect? Because I got light when I move to the left, where my light is shining, and nothing when I'm looking in front of me because there's not light shining on there. And I'm actually seeing my surface. As I move more to the left, I see my surface coming up. And it's not transparent because it's Lambert. It's a Lambert flat matte material that's in front of me, right? And it's 0.2 away, so just outside of my culling range, right? It's far enough away that I can see it, but not too far, not too close where it kind of interferes with my boundary, right? Because that's where I was getting that boundary effect. That's cool, and I would ask you guys to test it out. I don't have the time to do it today because I want to show you some sounds, right? So we'll do it another day. But that's the idea behind the reticule, is exactly what we're talking about. It's creating an overlay like this, like right next to the camera. Okay. And other ways to do that would be, for example, if I created a transparency, I could see everything colored in yellow. Like, for example, red alert, red alert. I can make my whole thing in front of the camera red, right? Like an example of that would be my temporary object, right? Also has a transparency, right? Or other aspects, right? So if I go temporary object, it's not this, it's my material, right? My material doesn't have just a color. What else does it have? Right, so if I say something like temp material dot, and if I look at my alpha, right, or my transparency, I can set my transparency or my alpha to whatever I want, right? So here's my transparency equals true. I could do that, but I want to set my transparency or my opacity. There it is. I can set my opacity to something like, I don't know, 0.5. And so here's my opacity to 0.5. Right? And let's try that, see what that does for me. Still it's quite opaque, right? So even with an opacity of 0.5, maybe I have to set transparency to true for that to happen. So temp material dot transparent equals true. And I have to do both. See? So I can color the material. I can make it so it's red alert, you know, kind of thing. If I colored a different material, I can create a filter in front of my camera by putting this little plane in front of me. Okay. Let's talk about some sounds really quickly. How do I add sounds? I have a library that I recommend to you to look into. Remember, for Friday, I don't need sounds. All I need is movement. I need your basic walls up. Put your walls up, right? Shields up. Basic objects you're going to collect, that you're going to bump into, they can be there, right? I'm okay with them if they're not. As long as I have your wall, moving around the whole maze from one end to the other, your physical level is finished, I'm happy by Friday, okay? So please don't kill yourself to do more than that. If you can get from one end of your maze to the other, that's what's required, okay? If you add extra to that, that's great. It's going to make it easier for you to finish. Let's go back to this CreateJS stuff. So there's a CreateJS library that I like to use, CreateJS. And CreateJS is really cool. It's a suite of libraries. I've used it for, I still use it for COMP397, which is web game programming. And there's 3 libraries. There's Easel.js, which draws on a canvas, right? By the way, we can use Easel.js in combination with 3JS, just on a different part of the screen, right? Remember, our object doesn't have to be full screen, right? We can limit it to a certain part of our screen and use our heads-up display in another part of our screen, right? Tween.js allows us to do some simple animations across the canvas, right? But also allows us to do any kind of transitions. So we can use Tween.js to transition even our 3JS objects. Things like going from fully transparent to fully opaque. We can do that with Tween.js, right? We can use Sound.js to create sounds, and we can use Preload.js to preload everything, right? so that way we don't have to suffer from too many transactions. Let's start with the preload thing first, right? First, what we want to do is grab this whole library, right? So I want to grab the library, and so today, before we finish, and I won't show you the whole library and sounds and everything until next week, but what I'm recommending to you today, let's finish by installing the library, right? So how do we do that? How do we get the library? Well, you can always download it here, right? But I highly don't recommend that. You can use CDN, but I recommend Bower, right? So let's just get Bower. Let's get Bower in here. So bow wow, I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to Control-C to stop debugging for a second. And I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say Bower install, right? And it won't be CreateJS. It'll be each one of them in order with a capital letter for each one of these. So EaselJS with a capital E, TweenJS with a capital T, SoundJS with a capital S, and PreloadJS with a capital P with the JS capitals at the end. That's how it has to look. So it'll look like this. So if I want to install EaselJS, it'll be EaselJS, like that, if I'm not wrong. Bower install EaselJS, and then -- save. And if it's not, we'll see in a second. There it is. Let's try it again. So if I say Bower install, thank God for this stuff, and I remember when we were doing this by hand before. So the next one will be TweenJS, -- save. Just putting all the libraries in place. Bower install SoundJS, that's important. -- save. And Bower install PreloadJS. Now, you'd be forgiven to think you can preload your images. Image preloading is for canvases. Image preloading is not, unfortunately, for what we're doing here in textures. Can't use the preloader for texture preloading. You can do it only for canvases and stuff. It doesn't work properly. You have to use the stuff that's built into Three.js. Okay, let's use TSD to install the rest of our type definition libraries, right? Otherwise, we won't be able to use TypeScript. So we'll say TSD install. Again, and if I was to start with EaselJS, it'll be EaselJS, lowercase, -- save. And then it'll grab Easel and Tween. Look, I got CreateJS, Easel, and Tween already in one package. Okay, so all I need is sound and preload, right? So I'll say TSD install SoundJS, -- save. And then I'll say, hey, look, with sound comes preload. Right, so it's the two installs here, and I've got everything I need. Okay, cool. Now that I've got those libraries, they have to be installed in my index.html so I can use them. Let's do that. So go back to here, and I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to go into my index.html. And next week when we start off our week, right, we'll start off with a new file called lesson 10. And our lesson 10 will include all this stuff, plus everything else we need. Also next week, I'm hoping to give you your final project, right? So let's, your JavaScript, here's my game scripts. I want to start using them before I get into Three.js. So I want to put them in the beginning, right? And for me to know where they are, I have to know the pattern. So if I look at scripts, lib, and if I look at starting, I'm going to start with easel at the top. It's easel lib, and then whatever it's going to be. So let's here's the pattern. All right, so let's start typing this out. So script, and then its source is equal to scripts, capital S, lib, and then easel.js with a capital E, lib, and then it's inside there, it's easel.js -0.8.2.min.js. That's for easel. Okay, same pattern for everything else. So let's just copy and paste a few times. And the next one will be TweenJS. And after that will be SoundJS, and then Preload.js at the end. By the way, this is the prescribed order. So I got to make some changes. So for TweenJS, it's underneath tween.js.0.6.2. So tween 0.6.2. And for sound, I believe it's all 6.2, everything else. Sound.js.0.6.2. Again, I'm just installing my libraries here. 0.6.2. Some of you might be following, some of you not. I will give you everything later on so you can create sounds. And last one, of course, is preload, which allows us to preload all of our stuff. Very, very useful library. Preload.0.6.2. Okay, cool. That's everything. That's 79 new files. Let's upload that to Up Online for you guys. It's all regularly changed. We'll say added CreateJS library. Libraries. And in a second, you should have all my changes. They're there. Okay, so now with the CreateJS library, one thing we can do is preload all of our sounds. And we need to create a different structure. And I can't get into it 100% today, but because we're running out of time. But if we look at our core files, notice at the top, we're actually loading up this initialization or an init function. Okay? So here's our game, right? Inside of our game, we have our init function. Well, the way we're going to be doing it is this. We're going to load up our preload function first, preload all of our stuff, and then we're going to call the init function from our preload function with an event listener. So we're going to say when everything is loaded, then we'll call up our initialization function. So we won't make this run until everything is preloaded, right? Which is very cool. And the code for this, for those people who want to jump ahead and look at it, if you're interested, sorry, I went to the wrong one, is here. If I go to preload and I look at docs, it gives you a sample starter of what it looks like, right? So we create a load queue or an assets queue, if you will, and then we use this event listener, right, which is .on with a complete on it to handle what happens when we load up our assets. So we're going to do this next time, and this is a great way of doing this. By the way, Preload.js loads up JSON files. It loads up HTML files. It'll load up image files, sound files, all kinds of stuff. And if you notice, and even CSS, everything you want, it'll preload for you, right? So it's a kind of a key to what we're going to be doing from here on in. And that's why I'm introducing it now, because we need some kind of form of preloader. And I also want to create the decorator that we're going to use around our finished game, right? So look out for next week. Next week, I'm going to be adding things like scoring and sound effects and all that kind of stuff, which is the same stuff that's going to be due for you next Friday. Okay. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of the week, and then we'll see you on next week for most of you. Okay? Take care.